This is Dr. B, host of The Dr. B Show and founder of Borja Consulting Group, a company that helps businesses grow through strategy, branding, and marketing. Today's guest is Regina Huber, a global leadership coach, entrepreneur, and author who has built businesses across multiple continents. In this episode, she shares how leaders can break free from limiting beliefs, embrace a freedom-first mindset, and create lasting success in both business and life.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of the Dr. B Show using new toys. I wanted to use a new toy. I'm here with the great Regina. Regina, how are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. And how about yourself?
I'm doing great. Always fun with like a 5-year-old kid with new toys. So using Restream here.
Okay.
I love it. Awesome. Let's jump right into it. So tell everyone about yourself.
Yeah, to put it in a nutshell, I guess, because there's a lot that has been going on in my life already. I'm no longer a spring chicken, right? And I have lived on several different continents, which has been very exciting. I have collected extremely eclectic experience, I would say. My life started in Germany many years ago, and I moved to Spain first. And from there, that was at age 26. From there, I really never stopped moving. I have been moving a lot between countries and continents. And it's been everywhere. It's always been a completely different situation or rather experience, right? So I started out working at the Boston Consulting Group, worked at a few of their offices in Europe and also the US and Latin America. And then I founded my own businesses in Argentina first and in Brazil and eventually in New York. And that's what still is there today for people to work with me. And I'm very excited to actually bring all this eclectic and rich experience into this business, into my very unique coaching approach. There are lots of coaches in the world, as we all know, and everybody has a very unique approach. And this is what makes me unique, I believe. And also working in several different languages in those different countries, but also as a coach. I can also support my clients in 4 different languages. I speak 5, but I work in 4.
Love it. I know 2, but you say I haven't beat by 3.
Right.
Okay. I gotta catch up to you. Awesome. So I'm gonna attempt to pronounce it, but you went to school for you're a certified interpreter, right? And translator, right? And also access bars and conversational language. How did all that experience, I think you mentioned it earlier in my first question, how did all experience help you in what you're doing today?
Yeah. So these, 3 very different things. The translator and interpreter certification was what it's like college, right? And it gave me a solid knowledge, not just of a couple of languages, but also economics and business administration. Of course, a lot of it would now be outdated, and that's always the case with these degrees. And I do believe that I learned the most valuable things in my life by doing and through my work, through my life experiences. Although, of course, yes, the languages are important, and they gave me the possibility to move and to actually do this work in different languages, right? Access bars is an energy technique, which is just one of many holistic methods that I've studied, and they certainly all flow into my work to some extent. They have helped me understand mindset, how our subconscious mind works, and neuroscience, at least the basics of it, all that, and also energy, which, by the way, is also something that I've learned a lot about through dance, which is my big passion. And conversational intelligence that you mentioned is a methodology created by Judith Glaser that very nicely complements my own leadership frameworks, as it focuses more on the verbal aspect of communication, at least to a large extent, while what I have created myself in terms of frameworks had a little bit of a different focus. So that's why I opted to add this on. So I had a well-rounded offering and I can support my clients in the best way. And and of course, we learn through all of our experiences, whether it's studies or whether it's other experiences in life. And I think that's what then creates that unique package that we are, and that then also to a certain extent catapults us into our next chapter.
It does, right? And it's never, even if you like, I don't ever want to call it failing. It's a learning experience, all right? And it, like you said, it'll catapult you into the next chapter of your life. I love that. Also, you mentioned earlier that you worked in and started businesses in Brazil, Argentina, and of course, your work in Germany and the U.S. So, what has those experiences taught you? Like, I think it's fascinating. If it's challenging enough to start a business here in the U.S., like home. How is it? I'm fascinated by what you just said, right? Going to a different country and starting a business. So tell us about that.
Yeah, first of all, I also lived in Spain, as I said earlier. There, I was actually, so to speak, thrown into my first leadership role without any relevant experience or background for that or studies, So that was really interesting experience. I took the challenge, and in a way, it prepared me for those future challenges. And I also did a lot of work in Portugal while I was in Spain. And then, of course, at some point, yes, I moved to Argentina for a short period of time. That was actually with an alum of the consulting firm that I had worked for a total of 16 years. And then, though, what happened is the monetary crisis happened in Argentina at the time, and so they couldn't pay me anymore. So BCG hired me back. But after that, 3.5 years later, I decided to just pack up and take all my savings and take a flight down to Buenos Aires and open a bed and breakfast. And I think the most challenging part of these two businesses in Argentina and Brazil is that they were actually brick and mortar businesses, because you cannot just say, "Oh, I'm now done. I'm going to leave," if it's not working, right? If something's not working, you have to you have a lot to resolve. And at some point, also after this time in Argentina, which by the way, it was a very successful bed and breakfast at the time. Argentina was quite cheap to travel to, so there was a lot of tourism going on and a lot of demand. And I was number one on TripAdvisor during the time it was open, almost the entire time, because I made a point of distinguishing myself from the other bed and breakfasts. There were about 44 at the time, if I remember well, in that city, right, in Buenos Aires. And then, though I got a little tired of it, I also had to deal with, corrupt authorities and the whole spiel. I mean, it happens everywhere, right? But in some places, it's just more in the face in that sense. So then I decided to move to Rio de Janeiro, and I opened another brick and mortar business, just that this time, for part of the business, I partnered up with a business partner, and that was actually not the best idea, turned out. And I had to make that very painful decision just after opening a few months later to really close it down, because he turned out to be fraudulent along the way. So I couldn't work with him anymore, and the business really depended on his name. So long story short, that was when I had to really clean up the mess this time, which eventually led me to move to New York City. But I was also still in that split energy between two locations, traveling back and forth, doing lots of cleanup work, as I call it. And it had a few challenges that I really was not prepared for, like doing paperwork and paying for paperwork twice without never even ever knowing whether it was really actually done. Was it business really closed down? Was it not closed down? Frankly, Jairo, I don't know to this date if it's closed down, but I also don't care anymore. So What this did, though, all of this is really made me very resilient, of course, but it also living in those different places and also traveling on the African continent more since I moved to New York City. That has broadened my horizon and really opened up my mind. It's given me an ability to, I think, get people more quickly, to understand more easily where people with different backgrounds are coming from, because I've lived it in several different places, right? I had to adapt in a way and to learn how people think, and also living in different language zones and working in different languages also does that, because it opens up to, yeah, it opens us up, I should say, to different ways of thinking, because languages are an expression of how people think, right? They're part of the culture, and they are influenced by that culture. So that's also a very interesting aspect of it to me personally.
I love it. I love it. You brought up a good point, like when you started the Argentinian business with the bed and breakfast, and how you distinguish yourself from other bed and breakfasts. Kind of reminds me of like the Airbnb strategy, right? Like, yeah, everyone has a home or whatever, right? But like, what makes you stand out? And that's why I know a lot of people in the Austin, Texas area that they make it unique so that people could come and book over and over, right? So pretty interesting when it comes to that. And I'm gonna follow up to what my last question is. Always, we live in this world of AI, right? Everything is trying to get automated or whatever, this and that. But you've always been in the people business, right? Whether it's brick and mortar or not, what you're doing now, right? So why shouldn't this? A lot of people are nervous, right? Oh, AI's gonna take my job, this and that, right? But despite all that, what do why shouldn't people lose sight of that? That at the end of the day, it's still people business, right? Tell me a little bit. Can you expand on that if you can?
Yeah, first of all, yes, you're right. Humans are hungrier than ever for humanness,
Right.
especially now in this
Yes.
age of
Yes.
AI,
Good
right?
way to good way to say it. Good way to put it.
Yeah, we are humans. We want that connection,
Yeah.
and they want more of the real thing, that real connection. And
Yeah.
and then we also need to remember that people are the core of any business. They are at the heart of any business, and without people, no business would exist. So, and why do I like to work with people? It's just because I really love to see the transformation in people. I love to support people to live their best lives, whether that's in leadership. I do leadership coaching. I call it freedom first leadership coaching, because for me, freedom is, to me, it's my top value, right? It's a very important word in my life. And this is how I want people to be able to live that freedom. And that's not just external freedom, it's a state of mind. But we want both, ideally, right? We want that freedom to be able to live where we want, to have that lifestyle and whatnot, but also that inner feeling of fulfillment, freedom, and that we're really making a difference, and that we have choice, because freedom is about choice, and not to be caught up in this default life. And come back, if you're already caught up there, maybe in autopilot a little bit, come back to a life by design rather than default. So that's what I like to do for people and with people.
I love it. It's all about the people. That's right. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. I'm gonna start. I'm gonna get into a little bit more about your existing business, right? Transforming your performance, right? So how do you you kind of already answered some of this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you help people step into the freedom to live an amazing freaking life?
Yeah, and yeah, I call it freaking amazing life. Is also, I came up with that title for my book as well. So my second book is called Living My Freaking Amazing Life. Subtitle: Create the life that's perfect for you anywhere in the world. And this is not about having a similar life to mine, of course. It's about your life that might look very different, right? So I have found that many leaders that I've worked with create an impressive career or business, and then over time they forget themselves over it, right? So it's as if yourself fades into the background, and your needs and your personal priorities and your desires all of a sudden are no longer important. Actually, not all of a sudden. I should not say all of a sudden, because it's usually a gradual process, right? And sometimes then, we also still live from an identity that no longer really fits us, an identity that we created for ourselves years ago to build this, maybe, and that it might have made sense back then, even, right? But it makes no longer sense now. And then that's where usually life starts to feel empty or dull, and like something's missing, and it's no longer so exciting, and there's no true joy in it anymore. And as I said before, it's almost like if we function on autopilot, and that's actually oftentimes an autopilot that we have cultivated for ourselves over time, right? And that's what then eventually usually stops feeling good, because it's not fulfilling. Even if you think, oh, okay, you're making all this difference and this and having all this impact, if you forget yourself in it, it's also usually not fulfilling, right? So we want both as leaders. And so I help leaders, both in corporate and founders, get their lives back while staying successful as leaders. So they don't have to give everything up or do less necessarily, but just do it a little bit differently. And that includes oftentimes leadership coaching for teams and all that, and delegation and whatnot. But it's really customized to my clients and their most burning needs at the time, right?
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. You reminded me of when I do my summits and when I do some workshops on raising money or teaching folks how to raise money. It all starts with you. If you don't believe it, you're not going to convince the other person to cut you a check. So that's why it starts with the internal, right? The internal,
Right.
internal stuff. If you believe it, if you believe it, you can achieve it, as they say, right? So I love it. You and I are very similar in that sense, right? So I love that. I'm going to ask you a question that you did ask me. For those, I'm going to be in a future episode of Regina's podcast. Excited. So, what does it mean to you? What does being a transformational coach mean to you?
Yeah, I already mentioned one thing, then that's freedom, right? That's always first in my work. That's why I also like to call myself a freedom first transformational coach or leadership coach. I do both, and it all overlaps anyway. It's not separate, right? So if we desire transformation, usually what we truly want, I found, is greater choice, more freedom. So freedom is at the core of it all. Of course, that could include a lot of different aspects. It could look different for different people, but the work itself, that transformational work, always will include mindset and also oftentimes working quite deeply with the subconscious. It will include working with your energy, freeing yourself of outdated identities, and also really making transformation. Then if you have a team, also making it possible for your team. Because first of all, as you transform, your team will notice that, right? Whether consciously or subconsciously, but in most cases in both ways, right? And passing your own transformation on to your team, through the way you show up, through your presence, but also maybe through some more proactive ways. I think that is something that I really like to see as a result of this work. And that's also why I love to work with leaders, because then they can create a ripple effect. It's not only for them and their lives, right, and their families. It's actually we touch the lives of many more people.
Makes a lot of sense. Like if you change a leader, their impact the direct department, they'll impact their lives and their lives. So it's almost like a tree, right? Ongoing effect. So very good point. I like that. I like that perspective, right? We're almost winding down, right? So why do you think, like, especially here in the US, right? It's all about, you grind, you work 40, 45 years, you retire and you enjoy it last few, and that's it. then it's over, right? But so why do you think a lot of folks, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah.
You're the opposite, right? You're like me, right? Like I'm trying to like get out of the status quo. So what do you think? What do you have to say to people like that? Why do you think that is, and how could you kind of help with that?
Yeah, and you said especially in the US, I grew up in Germany, and I can
Yeah.
tell you it's not different.
I gotcha.
And I grew up in a very hardworking, actually, farmer
Sure.
family because there are two lineages of farmers, right? So,
Yeah.
so they maybe had, it was passed on from generation to generation in a way, but we're all programmed to do this. To work hard, to grind, to keep your nose to the blah blah blah, and to really to sacrifice. That comes a lot with religion as well, right? And so this is programming going on, and it's starting at school or even before, because we already see our parents do things, right? We learn from behavior, especially as children. We learn through what we see. And why is that? Well, I believe it's because the system wants us to think that way and to do it that way, because that's what actually serves the system best, right? The current system. And that's how school is shaping us. and that's how school wants us to be. It's more about, okay, don't question anything. Here are your two options, right or wrong, and we tell you what's right. And then you are brought up in a way to fit into this grind and work hard system without daydreaming. Have you ever heard that in school? No daydreaming, when that would actually be your creative side. And
I've heard that a lot. Stop daydreaming. Get back to work.
right. And
Right.
what is that work? How is that more valuable? Repeating stuff that you're told to repeat, how is that more valuable than being creative in your imagination?
Right. No, agreed. No, I agree 100%. That's why I'm on a mission to like teach folks how to raise and build generational wealth. And it could be real estate, could not be real estate, but just kind of breaking the mold, right? And I'm on a mission to do that. So, and I think you are as well to an extent. So,
I can see that.
we're winding down. I'm sad because almost 30 minutes here. So, tell me a little bit about the books you have on Amazon, including the book on the freaking amazing life. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I already mentioned the Living My Freaking Amazing Life. It's on Amazon in English and Brazilian Portuguese. I translated it to Portuguese. And it is really about this very eclectic life that I have lived and what I've learned from it, right? So it's about, okay, it's supposed to be an inspiration to really create that life that's perfect for you. And it includes a lesson that I've learned for leadership, and that again includes self-leadership after each chapter. Okay. It describes some of the highlights of my journey so far, filled with lots of adventures, some really crazy ones. So it's also entertaining for sure, I promise. But it's not only meant as entertainment. And it's also not necessarily meant as an autobiography, because people had said to me in the past, oh, why don't you write a book about your life? And I said, well, why would somebody read that if it's not really valuable to them? And that's actually why it took so long to figure out, okay, how could this be valuable to people? Before that, many years ago in 2016, I wrote Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. And this is a compilation of tools and techniques to prepare mentally, physically, and energetically for challenging situations in business and life, such as public speaking, job interviews, sales conversations, whatever it is for everybody, right? And those tools, I had come up with those actually because I had a need for them myself. And I started using those tools when I was at a very deep point, when I had actually lost my self-esteem for a moment, right after that experience with the business partner in Brazil. And I started from scratch, rebuilding that confidence, networking in New York, a place that I was new to, where I knew practically no one and where I didn't have a network. And so I really needed those tools at the time myself. And then I figured they might be helpful for other people too.
I love it. No, thank you so much for that. Thank you for those tools. Thank you for everything you've given to everyone. I appreciate that. Rise to Lead podcast. Where could people find more information about that? Tell us about that.
Yeah, the Rise to Lead podcast is really on all the main podcast apps or platforms. And it is about fearless voices, bold leadership, and unconventional thinkers. I always look for unique perspectives for my podcast. You were on it. Should go live soon too.
I'm excited. Yeah, please listen to it. Download it.
Yeah, I look forward to that too, very much. We had a great conversation. Thanks for coming on. And yeah, it's really about conversations and wisdom that can help bold leaders, or those who want to be more bold, across industries, whether they are entrepreneurs, business owners, or whether they're in corporate, to become more thriving leaders. Right. And to sometimes also stand up for what's right when it's maybe not popular. So all these different types of inspiration you can find there. And also some very practical knowledge as well, of course.
Love it. Love it. Excellent. Where can people find more information about you if they're interested in learning more about you, your services? Where can they contact? How can they contact you?
Yes, my website is called transformyourperformance.com. That's also my business name, transformyourperformance.com. There you will find the links to the podcast, to the books, to everything basically. And then, of course, the podcast you can find on all the platforms. And social media links are in there as well. I have a YouTube channel under my name, Regina Huber. And yeah, those are the main places.
Love it. Regina Huber, thank you so much for being on my show. I enjoyed our conversation. Our time, unfortunately, is up, but it's okay. We'll definitely reconnect again.
Yes, we will, definitely. Thank you so much for having great questions and for having me on.
No, thank you. Regina Huber, everybody. Take care.